A cold wind pressed against the grimed windows of the Copper Kettle Cafe in Bristol as the sun struggled to rise behind a blanket of gray clouds.
It was the kind of morning that felt heavy, like life had forgotten to give it color. Inside, the scent of burnt coffee and buttered toast floated through the empty booths. At the far corner, near the window no one chose unless they had nowhere else to sit, an old woman arrived.
She came every morning, always alone, always quiet, and always wearing the same long black coat and a silver brooch shaped like a feather.
She carried sadness in her eyes, like one who once had everything, then lost it without warning.
Her name was Emily Thompson, and every morning she sat in that particular booth. And every morning, one person noticed her.
Her name was Grace Miller, a young waitress barely eking out an existence, yet still managing to smile at everyone no matter how heavy life became.
Grace wasn't like the other waitresses. Most came for a paycheck, but Grace came for something else. Maybe a reason to keep believing that people could still be kind.
She had learned early in life that the world doesn't hand out blessings easily. She grew up with little, lost her parents early, struggled through foster homes, and now at 26, she survived on tips that barely covered her rent. But she had a heart that refused to break.
And every day when she looked at Emily sitting alone with hands that trembled, something deep within Grace recognized this woman needed a whisper of human connection more than any stimulant.
Before we dive deeper into this story, if you believe in the quiet power of compassion, if you believe a single act of genuine kindness can ripple through a life,
then please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Third Person View, and share it with someone who yearns for hope in an often cold world. Your support helps us spread stories that gently remind us of humanity's best. Grace first noticed Emily 2 months ago. The old woman never ordered more than tea and dry toast.
She counted coins one by one from an old purse, and her hands shook as though they carried the weight of years no one else could see.
Most customers ignored her. Some pitied her, but no one spoke to her. Grace wasn't sure why, but she felt drawn to Emily. Not out of curiosity, but compassion.
There was something about the old woman's loneliness that reminded Grace of her own reflection during the nights she cried quietly in her compact apartment in Bristol. So Grace began to help her. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, gently. She brought Emily warm toast instead of cold.
She refilled her tea without charging. Sometimes she slipped an extra muffin onto her plate. At first, Emily tried to refuse, embarrassed,
but Grace always smiled and said it was a cafe promotion or the chef's special. They both knew it wasn't true, but neither of them said it out loud.
Day after day, their unspoken friendship grew. Grace learned Emily loved reading by the glow of a reading lamp, that she once resided near the coast, and that she used to smile a lot. Emily, on the other hand, learned that Grace worked double shifts because she had no family to help her, that she walked home to save money because her car had broken down months prior, and that, despite everything, Grace believed kindness always came back one day. But Emily never spoke about her past, about who she was, or what she once had.
It was as if she had erased entire chapters of her life. Then one morning, Grace found Emily sitting in her usual booth with red eyes. She had been crying.
When Grace gently asked if she was all right, Emily finally whispered something unexpectedly painful. She had nowhere to live anymore.
She had been evicted from her apartment and didn't know where she would go. That night, she admitted softly, seek solace in an old train station.
Grace didn't hesitate. She reached over and held Emily's hand. Something inside her broke. She possessed no surplus funds, no savings, didn't even have a car.
But she couldn't let this woman dissolve into the anonymity of the cold night. That evening, after work, Grace walked Emily home, not to a train station, but to her own modest flat in Bristol.
She cleared space, gave Emily her own bed, and slept on the couch. For the next week, she shared her food, washed Emily's clothes, and helped her search for assistance programs.
Emily had tears in her eyes more than once. She kept asking why Grace was doing this. Grace simply replied, "No one offered me a hand when I needed it most."
But I survived because I believed one day someone would. One morning, a week later, Emily didn't come to the cafe.
Grace grew worried. The next day, still no Emily. On the third day, panic began to coil around her heart. She rushed home after her shift, only to find Emily gone.
Her room was empty, the bed neatly made, but there was a note on the pillow. "Thank you for giving me back hope. Emily."
Beneath, no address, no explanation, nothing but the stark finality of her departure. Grace stared at the note and felt a hollow ache that resonated through her soul.
She didn't know why it hurt so much. Emily had walked out of her life as suddenly as she had walked in. Grace feared something bad had happened to her. She called hospitals, shelters. No one had seen her. Weeks passed, then a month, until one quiet afternoon, everything changed.
It was a slow Tuesday morning at the cafe. Grace was wiping tables when a convoy of dark, gleaming saloons pulled up outside.
4 men in dark suits stepped out, with an air of disciplined purpose, clearly security personnel. The entire cafe fell silent as they walked inside.
Behind them came 2 lawyers in tailored coats. They looked around the cafe like they were searching for someone. "Who are they looking for?" a cook murmured from the pass.
"Trouble," another muttered. Then one lawyer stepped forward and asked, "Is there a Grace Miller here?" Grace froze. The entire cafe looked at her.
"Yes," she said cautiously. "That's me, Miss Miller," the lawyer said calmly. "We've been instructed to bring you with us." Grace's heart pounded.
"Why? What's happened?" "You will understand shortly. Please, come with us." Fear coiled in her stomach, but something deeper, like a strange pull of fate, made her follow them.
The car door closed behind her, and in minutes they were driving through the most exclusive district of Edinburgh. Gated estates, security cameras, perfectly manicured lawns.
It was another world. They stopped at a sprawling Georgian mansion surrounded by tall trees and silence. One of the security personnel opened the door as if Grace were royalty.
Inside, soft piano music echoed faintly through the grand halls. The lawyers led her to a room where enormous windows revealed a snow-covered garden.
In the center of the room sat Emily Thompson, wearing a beautiful lavender dress, her hair neatly styled, her eyes bright. Grace gasped. Emily smiled and said gently, "Hello, dear."
Everything froze. Grace stumbled forward. She was overwhelmed, relieved, confused, and emotional, all at once. Emily explained everything.
She was not a poor, homeless widow. She was the sole heir to Thompson Group, one of the largest private investment firms in the country. She had more wealth than she ever wanted. But she had lost her husband and her only son in a tragic accident 2 years ago. The grief consumed her. She disappeared from her company and from public life.
She walked away from everything: money, power, responsibility. She wanted to know if genuine kindness truly existed in the world, or if it was merely a commodity her vast wealth had only ever pretended to buy.
So she vanished and lived like a nobody.
That's when she met Grace, someone who didn't know who she was, someone who didn't want anything from her, someone who shared everything she had, even when she had almost nothing.
Emily reached out and held Grace's hands, just as Grace had once held hers. Then she said something that changed Grace's life forever.
I do not need a maid. I do not need a nurse. I need a heart I can trust. I want you by my side, Grace, not as an employee, but as family.
If you accept, everything I have will one day be yours, not because of blood, but because of love. You reminded me why life is still worth living.
Grace stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. For years, she felt alone in this world. But in that moment, she realized something beautiful.
You never know who you are meant to meet, whose life you might change, or who might change yours. They embraced like two souls who had found each other in a universe of loneliness.
If this story touched a chord deep within you, if it reminded you that connection and kindness are the truest forms of wealth, and that a selfless heart can find family where it least expects it, please like this video, subscribe to Third Person View, and share it with someone who needs to believe in the transformative power of human goodness.
Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter, stories that nourish the soul.
Before we close, I want to ask you, what do you consider the most profound act of kindness you've ever witnessed or given?
Share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you.